Corporation. Kate, your line is now open. Please unmute your microphone.
Hi, Governor. How are you?
Hiya, Kate.
Hi. So I was wondering why you are citing COVID restrictions as the reason for limiting in-person press conferences when the infection rate is so much far lower than it was at this time last year. And also I also wanted to ask you about, you appeared with the Senate Majority Leader for the first time this week since she called for your resignation. So I was curious about how that has impacted your working relationship and how you interact with other officials who've also called for you to step down.
Yeah, it hasn't. People take political positions every day. We often have different political positions. I understand that. But we separate political positions and our official duty, right? We just did a budget that was very, very complicated, a lot of different political positions. So they're two very different things. In terms of the press conferences, look, I have done press conferences in every manner, shape, or form known to politics. I have done it since, I've been doing it for 30 years, During COVID, we went to virtual press conferences. Everybody knows that. Many elected officials now, I don't know what they're doing on the federal level, but many elected officials are still doing virtual press conferences. I have participants in an event. Some people say, well, kick out the participants to the event and allow press instead. But they're the participants in the event. But
when you've you still are supposed to have this 3 times a weekly press conference schedule. As far as I know, that's kind of fallen by the wayside. It's supposed to have, there are days where no press gets to ask you a question. So I'm just curious why the change in that, why is there an inconsistency, it seems?
Well, there isn't. At one time I did briefings 7 times a week. Then I did briefings at 5 times a week. Then I didn't do any briefings. Then we hit the holiday surge and I said, we'll do briefings 3 times a week. We're now past the holiday surge. Basically, we don't have a daily COVID crisis the way we did. Before COVID, sometimes I did a press conference every 2-3 weeks, right? So there was no set schedule, but we're obviously at a different point in COVID, and there's not necessarily new news every day, certainly, and not even 3 times a week. But besides the COVID precautions, I think we're also at a different stage now where the weather is nicer, so we can do things outside more. I know next week we're going to do things outside. And when you're outside, you have more space, open space, it's easier, and we can invite the press. But whether I talk to you through this, or if you happen to be sitting here, I don't know that it makes a lot of difference. Also, many more people participate this way. If you do a press conference and you have 15 people here, on this mechanism, there are like 200 people who participate. So, but it's neither here nor there. Next week, we're going to start doing events outside. When we do events outside, then we'll have more flexibility and we'll have press at the press conferences. Next question, operator.
Governor, your next question comes from Bill Mahoney of Politico. Bill, your line is now open. Please unmute your microphone.
Hey, Governor. Somewhat related question. We're now at the point where pretty much everything in the state has reopened to some degree, except for state government. Should New Yorkers get a message that the state capitol being open to the people is less important than movie theaters or Knicks games or anything else that's happening? And is this just because you don't want protests in the Capitol, as some people have alleged?
I didn't even hear that allegation. And No, that has nothing to do with it. Some people allege everything, right, Bill? If you if you go by what some people allege, they have a conspiracy theory for everything. The rules of the Capitol, there's no reason why we haven't revisited them. They're more a function of the legislature's functioning, the Senate is functioning, part on Zoom, part in person. I don't know exactly what their rules are, but whatever makes sense, consulting with the legislature, I'm open to. I don't know.
These are your rules that shut down the Capitol, right? Not theirs?
Yeah, but I'm open to anything. You know, it doesn't matter to me. And I don't know how much of their session they do in person now versus on Zoom, frankly, either. But I'm open to talking to them about the rules and whatever makes sense from a health point of view, because it doesn't make any difference to me operationally. Next question, operator.
Governor, your next question comes from Kelly Dudzik of WGRZ. Kelly, your line is now open. Please unmute your microphone.
Hi, Governor. As you know, the numbers in Western New York here are not great, but all of the incentives that you announced today are for New York City. What specifically are you going to do to make sure Western New Yorkers are getting the vaccines? They are plentiful here right now, but there are people clearly who are hesitant.
The incentives, there were no real incentives. There were pop-up sites that we announced today in New York City. We've announced pop-up sites in Western New York also. The main thing that goes into effect today is the 60 plus. You don't need an appointment. You can do a walk-up. That goes into effect in Western New York also. And you're basically asking Marcia Kramer's question. What do you do about the hesitant population? I think right now it's access and it's information. That's the main strategy. The numbers, the demand has dropped in Western New York, and the positivity rate is higher in Western New York. There's no doubt about that. But I think that is more of a community response and behavior. I think you have people who don't take as many precautions. They don't take it as seriously. And the sequitur to that is, if I don't want to wear this, if I don't believe that COVID is a serious risk, if I don't believe in the precautions, then I don't believe in getting a vaccine, right? It's a continuum. And we have seen that in Western New York. We've seen it in other parts of the state. From the get-go, from the very beginning. This is no news story in Western New York. When COVID first started in Western New York, you had the highest positivity rate, higher positivity rate than many other parts of the state right out of the box. One of the lowest mask compliance rates right out of the box. One of the highest resistance to any rules, right? Bars, restaurants, schools, businesses, because people do not take, some people do not take the COVID issue as seriously. And obviously you will also see that in vaccinations, because if I'm not going to wear this, I'm not going to roll up my sleeve and get a shot. Now, I argue informationally, look at your infection rate. And at one point, the numbers did change in Western New York. When they saw in the nightly news that people were going to hospitals and people were dying, they took it seriously, and the numbers changed. I think we're now in a period where people have COVID fatigue, it's warm, we have vaccines, I'm not as worried. You let your guard down. And I think we're also seeing that with the vaccines. But that's why I reiterate almost every day, look at the variations across the state. Look at the highest rate in Western New York. Ask yourself why. And that should be a discussion in Western New York. why do we have the highest infection rate in the state of New York? What is it? What is it? What is it about us in Western New York that we have the highest infection rate? And if you have the highest infection rate, you have people dying. So that's a legitimate question and issue and discussion in Western New York that I push every time I can.
So, Governor, it sounds like you're definitively saying it's behavioral and it's not because of variants being more plentiful here or something like that.
That's right. Well, there is no Buffalo variant that we have discovered, right? There was a New York City variant. Okay, why does Western New York have a higher positivity rate than New York City, which had a variant, and Western New York didn't? And if it's not behavioral, tell me what it is. Next question, operator, let's take one more.
Governor, your next question comes from Michael Gormley of Newsday. Michael, your line is now open. Please unmute your microphone.
Hiya, Michael.
Please
Hello,
unmute your
Governor.
microphone.
Hello, Governor. Mike Gormley, Newsday.
Hiya, Mike.
Two quick questions, Governor. Do you keep a record of when your employees in the chamber are working on their own time? Is there a record of when they're on their own time or when they're in the state time? And also, what you've said was your way, what you've already said that you've done, which is touching people, sometimes kissing them, hugging them, being friendly, that type of thing, and supportive. If that is all the investigations show, and they consider that under the definition of the state executive chamber handbook as sexual harassment, would you resign then or not run for re-election if they just did what you said you've already done?
Well, first, there are employee attendance records. I don't know exactly what they are, but there are employee attendance records. And on the review, what I've said there a number of times, Michael, is let the review proceed, and then there'll be a lot to talk about in the review. And there's a lot that I want to talk about in the review. You know, there's been one side of the story, and then the Attorney General, I referred to pick people to do an independent review. That's the referral on this matter. And then the legislature started a review. So there will be a lot to talk about on this situation. And I am very eager to do it. But I want to respect the process for the time being. Okay, operator, thank you very much. Have a good weekend.